The computer is thinking. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Oregon Fan Show. Our guest this afternoon is Spencer McLaughlin of Locked on Ducks, Locked on Big Ten, and Locked on College Football. Did I get all your assignments right, Spencer?
Mostly I don't host Locked On Big Ten. That's Craig Sheeman, but I host the Locked On Big Ten Squad show every week. Pretty much. That's where I get on the Big Ten channel there. But yeah, Dale, great to be on with you. Always happy to talk to Oregon fans.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. I just have to speak directly to the people for just a second. Spencer's show, Locked on Ducks, has 13,200 subscribers as of this afternoon. My little show, well, we had a big celebration, had chocolate ice cream for lunch because we reached 63. It is incredibly generous of Spencer, who serves the Oregon fan community so incredibly well, to come on this show and spend 20 minutes with us. And I just want to begin, Spencer, by thanking you.
Hey, you're very welcome. And by the way, that channel didn't start out being there when I took it over. When I started, Locked On Ducks on YouTube had 8 subscribers. You start you start somewhere and you just build little by little.
Well, you built it, I think, Spencer, by with an amazing level of dedication. I see you crank out 2 or 3 shows a day. I see you doing 3 or 4 segments a day with the second segment sip and all the delightful aspects of your show. Man, how do you do it? Just the sheer volume of topics and takes that you come up with.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a great support system behind me at the Locked On Network, and they talk to us as hosts a lot about, how to do a show about the same team or school every day. And, every channel is different. We've got college channel and NHL and MLB, NFL and NBA. And, the oversight of those shows is all different of how you get to, do a show 5 to 6 or sometimes 7 days a week, depending on the news cycle. Like it sounds like a daunting task. And, I helped someone get a job at Locked On recently who is going to be hosting a show on the NHL show. And his biggest question to me was like, how do you, do a show 5 days a week talking about the same team? And I said, I had the same question. Quite frankly, I'll be honest with you. I have the same worry every off season. Like there's always this thought in my mind, even though I've been doing this for, 4.5 years now, over 4.5 years, I still have the same thought in the back of my mind every off season. What am I going to talk about? What's going to happen? What if I don't? And then every single off season, stuff always comes up. People send me mailbag questions. I think of ideas. I think like all this stuff, and like you just sit there and work at it. And I'm definitely a lot better than I used to be. That's for sure. So that's the shortest winded answer that I could give is, I have other people because, sometimes bonus shows or entire shows I do in the off season are with other people. And I mean, it's so much easier to do a show with somebody else than it is to do on your own. And, having the network there and just, I've had an awesome boss who's helped me grow and get better. Like that's probably the best way I can put it. So like most things in life, I had a good teacher.
Well, it takes a receptive person to learn those lessons, and you certainly have. It's awesome to see your growth. Enjoy the content on that show amazingly.
Glad to hear it.
What are you working on today, this week, this afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, I've got my show scheduled for tomorrow, both on Locked On Ducks, and I do our national college football show as well, which is, about the same amount of time, but can be sometimes trickier to do, just because the audiences are different and the content's different and all this stuff. But yeah, I'm doing those shows. I keep them 5 days a week all year round. We have an off season at Locked On where in order to meet the minimum guarantee of, getting into the shared revenue at the network, you only have to do 3 shows a week for, I think it's like 6 weeks. Every channel has an off season because the content can be dry. I've never wanted to do that because my boss always pushed me to, you know, do more, to do as much as you can, throw out a bonus show when possible, put out more shorts, stay 5 days a week. And, I think at the network, we see the benefit of that. And there are shows that go down to 3 days a week because, this is a part-time job for most of us. And so not everyone has the same time commitment, but, we've got an incredible lineup of hosts that do a great job and, keeping the content flowing, and the network does a great job of that as well. So, right now I'm doing my shows and I'm getting ready for play-by-play season. Our first broadcast for Southern Utah, who I'm the play-by-play voice for, is next Saturday at Montana. You can check out that live stream of the radio broadcast with a camera that's just on me while I call the game on YouTube. And that's a big focus right now, is making sure that I'm ready for all the fall sports, because when I go from summer mode to fall broadcasting mode, it is a shall we say massive increase in workload, and I have to actually travel back to Utah. So I've got to physically get there first, but then I have to be ready for all the sports that I call for SUU.
What sports do you call for? What are they? The Skyhawks?
Yeah, Thunderbirds.
Okay.
Yeah. Something up there in aerial superiority. Yeah, I do. I do football, women's soccer, women's volleyball, men's and women's basketball, gymnastics, and softball. Mostly those broadcasts are on ESPN Plus, but they're also mostly with football. I do radio broadcasts for them as well, and then a little bit of men's basketball on the radio. But yeah, mostly the home TV broadcast and the road radio broadcast for football.
Which sport is hardest to call?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think I've gotten that before. The hardest to call. I'm actually gonna go. I'm gonna go with soccer, and the reason is that it is because of the level of soccer that. And this is most soccer broadcasts, quite frankly. The World Cup was this past summer. I'm sure a lot of people watched that. I did. It was awesome. It was fantastic. And I picked Spain to win it all. So, there was that. And I lived in Spain for a while, so that was cool. But the thing about soccer that most people watch on TV, like I was watching some highlights of the Timbers game yesterday, and the crowd was packed, and they're going crazy when a goal gets scored. And in a soccer match, when you listen to a broadcast, you don't realize until it isn't there how much that play-by-play announcer is utilizing the crowd to carry the broadcast, because there's a constant hum, there's a constant energy, and you can let stuff lay out. I'm not saying that it's easy. No play-by-play role is easy. The level of difficulty, I think, goes up when you are at a soccer match that you are calling where there are 50 people behind you who aren't even close to a crowd mic, and you have to keep the broadcast going the whole time. And one thing I've learned calling those games is you can run out of big picture storylines very, very quickly if you either don't have enough or you try to jam them all in at the start of the broadcast. You can get to the 12-minute mark of the first half, look down at your notes and say, I've already said all these things. We're not going to repeat them. So finding that balance and keeping, those broadcasts to flow and to continue moving along with a good pace and something that the audience will enjoy, I think that's actually been the toughest. The toughest sport to learn was gymnastics, without question. I'm still trying to learn all of that stuff, and I know way more than I used to, but gosh, if I didn't have a good analyst for that, I'd be toast.
It's got to be great for your career and your skills to be taking on all these different challenges and, broadcasting sports that you never played and maybe didn't even follow when you started.
Yeah, very much so. Gymnastics being the best example. When I interviewed with Southern Utah, I was talking to the two sports information directors at the time. Neither one of them's there anymore, actually, because that's the way the business goes. But they asked me. I was coming from Eastern Oklahoma State, where I'd called high school football, men's, women's basketball, baseball, softball, and we did a little bit of soccer. And they asked me, what do you know about gymnastics? And they said, it's okay if you don't know anything, but, we just want to know, like, what do you know? And I said, straight up, nothing. And they said, okay, that's fine. You can learn, but just know that this is not a, throw in sport or something that you have to, like, this is a big deal. And it is a big deal. It's the best sport on campus. Always has been. They've made the NCAA tournament. I think this past year was their 13th year in a row that they've gone to regionals, which is the equivalent in basketball of making the NCAA tournament. So, they have been an incredible program for a long time, and like I had to learn everything. And so for a week or two, I forget how many practices it was, but over the course of a couple of weeks leading up to my first gymnastics meet, I just shadowed one of our assistant coaches, and I was just peppering her with questions. And she was happy to teach me and tell me all this stuff because she wanted the broadcast to be good. But I was just asking her everything, like, what's the terminology? What do you call this? What do you call it? How do you avoid? And there were still, learning moments. Like, for example, you do not call it a vault routine. I had to learn that. And I was told that that we got mocked a little. Well, I got mocked a little bit. My analyst, who was a former gymnast, would never do such a thing. But she said, "Hey, like you're gonna you're gonna take a little pushback for that." I'm like, "Yeah, that makes sense." And so, just learning stuff like that, you have to be willing to do it because you have to be adaptable. If you're not willing to adapt to things, then I don't think you're putting your best foot forward. So I've learned everything that I can, and there have been, I didn't have a lot of experience around volleyball. I knew that more than gymnastics, but yeah, gymnastics in particular was one that I knew literally nothing about, and I can tell you a lot more now. I'm not saying I'm a judge. I'm definitely not, but like I can watch a routine and score it, and I'll be within a decent range of what the judge would typically give. And obviously, there's some subjectivity to it, but like nowadays, I could watch a girl's bar routine and say that's probably like a 9.8, and it'll be no more than like a half tenth off, if that.
That's awesome. In the words of the immortal Ted Lasso, be curious.
Yeah.
Ask questions.
Yes.
It
Be
sounds
curious.
like yeah. Sounds
I
like
love
you've
that
asked. Yeah, I do too. I love that show. What's the big dream? What's the big goal?
From a play-by-play standpoint, I love to do nationally televised college football and basketball games. Those are my favorite sports to do, basketball especially, and I love football as well. And the best thing in play-by-play, honestly, is chasing great environments. I mean, that's the most fun. I don't mean this in a negative sense, but it's a high, like it's like a drug. And frankly, as I go about my summer, and I don't call any games in the summer, I just do my shows, and that's all good and fine. I have a lot of fun, play a bunch of golf and all that. But the thing that I always remember when I get back, and let's say we've got an in-state men's basketball game where you're going to have anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 people in the gym, whereas a typical game is like 1,000 people in the gym or so, maybe even a little less. When I get into that environment and start calling the game, I'm reminded every single year, yeah, this is why I'm never giving this up. It's unlike anything else. So I'd love to get to the network television level. It's really hard. It's really competitive, and I work on it as best I can. But I still have a long way to go in life and in my career. So I'm trying to not worry about not being there yet. But like from a play-by-play standpoint, that's where I would like to be, and I'd also like to keep doing Locked On Ducks and Locked On College Football for as long as I feel like doing it. Heck, I might want to do Locked On Ducks till I'm 70. That might be fun.
Well, I hope you and Dan Lanning stay in your current roles for a long, long time.
Yeah, me too. Lanning's awesome. I had a funny thought about him recently because I was listening to Joel Klatt's show, and I know Joel a little bit, and he's, I think, an awesome voice for college football, even if we don't always agree on things, but that's okay. He was talking on his show, and he said, well, I've said that this is a championship or bust season for Oregon, and Dan Lanning told me that he doesn't like when I say that. And in my head, I was like, Lanning might hate my guts if that's the case, because I've said that 20 times this offseason because it's how I feel about the upcoming year. But yeah, I'm not trying to, identify candidates in the back of my mind. Like I can always think about other segments or future segments or ideas for the show. One of them is not who would I want to hire if Dan Lanning, like no, just keep that guy there, he'll get it done.
Okay. You had a question the other day on your show that I really liked. It was from a listener, and it said Oregon will win a national championship this year if. How would you
Yeah.
fill in the blank?
Yeah, there were a number of ways that I thought about that, and interestingly, what I've long said is the number one question for the Ducks going into the year wasn't the first thing that popped into my mind. What popped into my mind was what I've said is the number one reason Oregon didn't beat Indiana, and that's that Dante Moore didn't play well. That was the difference, and I mean, I know the defense didn't have a spectacular day, for sure. Of the 56 points, 21 of them are on Dante Moore and solely Dante Moore. Holding the ball too long, not protecting it in the pocket on one. You got the interception that led to a touchdown or the pick six on the first play. And then you have the fumble with Dier Hill. And I mean, those are all on Dante. Mendoza wasn't making those mistakes. And so, again, did Oregon's defense play well? No. But when your quarterback is giving basically 21 points to the other team, now the defense, needed to help the quarterback out, hold him to a field goal at least once, if not twice, and they weren't able to do that. So it's not as if they're, free from criticism because that's football. But, I just think that popped into my head most likely because that was the overwhelming takeaway was like, man, that game almost felt like it was over after the first play. But then Oregon responded. Then the defense couldn't get a stop. And then Dante just kept making those mistakes. And, you have to grow and learn from that. I know Dante knows that. He doesn't need me to tell him or anyone else. I think he's well aware of it. And so then that comes back to the biggest question I have for this team. Do they have the right coordinators? Are these guys good enough to win a national championship? That's a legitimate question that's hanging out there. I think you could look at Tosh Lupoy as a defensive coordinator and point to all the really good things he did and also realize that he probably wasn't good enough as a DC and play caller to win a national championship. I mean, in the games that ended Oregon's season, the last 2 years, gave up an average of, 48 and a half points a game.
Yeah.
And
you got out schemed.
Yeah.
You got out schemed.
Yeah, absolutely. In both instances. And I think the Ohio State one was worse because, they had so much time to prepare and Stein and Tosh were not working on, developing their rosters for their new head coaching opportunities. So different challenges there that Oregon failed to overcome. But, it just brings you back to winning a national championship is not easy. Never has been, never will be. And you're going to have to find a way to overcome this stuff. And, I get annoyed a little bit when people talk about those two games and they lump them together because it was the same head coach and it was the same school and it, had a similar feel in that an amazing season ended with a blowout. But those two games were very different. They were very, very different. You can absolutely criticize Dan Lanning for, as a former defensive coordinator, for not having his defense ready to go. That's 100% fair. But to say that, well, their season ended the same way, kinda, but not entirely. The running back room wasn't depleted going into Ohio State. The offensive and defensive coordinator weren't splitting their time between game planning and getting ready to be a head coach for the first time in their careers. Like, yeah, those are challenges that great teams will overcome, but they're very different. And I stand by that 2024 Rose Bowl, even though Lanning was a younger head coach, that was the worst performance compared to the Peach Bowl last year. Just my take on it. You had a veteran quarterback. You had a really good team. Your coordinators weren't going anywhere. You had extra time off, and it wasn't close. Last year, I picked Oregon to beat Ohio State in that Rose Bowl. I thought they'd win the rematch. Last year, I did not. Last year, I felt going into the game, there's so many things working against Oregon here. The running back injuries, the coordinators leaving, the fact that Indiana is really good and they have a more experienced quarterback. Here we are.
Yeah. Well, in sports, we love to make comparisons. Things are always more different than they are alike. And only cis deal in absolutes.
That's absolutely right. Which some people have pointed out over the years is in and of itself an absolute, but I don't subscribe to that particular train of thought. We all know what Obi-Wan Kenobi is about.
All right. Last question, because I know you got to get going. You got a lot of shows to prepare for. You did something on your show this week that was really funny. It was the bracket of pain. Just explain quickly what the bracket of pain is.
Yeah, follow at Locked on Ducks on Twitter. I got to shout out Steven, the Oregon fan that put this together. Like, full disclosure, I did not. I am obviously using my platform on the Locked on Ducks Twitter account to put all of this out there. But 24-hour fan voting. He's got 64 painful moments. They're seated incredibly well. I mean, the 116 and 215 matchups are not close, and everything else, like, it gets tighter as it goes down. He put serious time and effort into that. Like, I'm just a vessel. That's it. I'm just a vessel for getting that out to the masses. But if you go to @LockedOnDucks, you can relive and vent out all the frustrations that you've ever had as an Oregon fan with those moments, and hopefully we flush them all this year and Oregon is finally hoisting that trophy at the end of the season.
I want that so much
For
all the Oregon
so
fans
badly.
and especially for Phil Knight.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, it would be a special thing to get to experience. It'd be a special thing to be able to cover and talk about on my show. After the Indiana debacle last year, I think I went live after the game by myself for about an hour. If Oregon wins it all, I might be there for 3 hours, just on my own, just rambling, talking to people. I might add any Oregon fan that wants to come on the show. I don't know, man. I'll go nuts with it. But we got to beat Boise State first.
We absolutely do. Spencer, you've been so generous with your time. I appreciate you. Have a great season. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you, Dale. Good to talk to you. Peace, everybody. Go Ducks.